This is the inner gate, not the outer gate, inner gate. Outer court is the inner gate. So there are tables here, okay, and inside also got tables. So this one, so for engineering, sometimes we make the model, we put it on it, but then we want to show you the inside, we lift up the thing. So you see like this, it's like the structure is being lifted so you can see the inside. So on the inside, there are also two tables on this side and two tables on the other side. As it is written, in the porch of the gate, there were two tables on this side and two tables on the other side. This is inside, this is outside. So I read again. There was a chamber, verse 38, and his entrance by the gatepost of the gateway, where they washed the burnt offering. In the vestibule or the porch of the gateway were the two tables on this side and two tables on that side, on which to slay the burnt offering, the sin offering and trespass offering. This reminds you very much under the law, when Moses gave them instruction, you must celebrate the 7 feasts, and you must make offering for trespass, for sin, and for peace, and so on. Then, at the verse 40, at the outer side of the vestibule, as one goes up the entrance to the northern gate. So it's very clear. Now we mention the northern gate. So you're wondering just now, you read verse 38, which gate is this? God says it's the northern gate. So it first mentioned the inside, and then now it mentions the outside. Verse 40, at the outside of the vestibule, as one goes up to the entrance of the northern gateway, after you climb 8 steps, were 2 tables, and on the other side of the vestibule of the gateway were 2 tables. So, verse 41, 4 tables were on this side and 4 tables on that side. By the side of the gateway, 8 tables on which they slaughtered the sacrifices. So very clear, so you cannot end up with 6 tables, cannot end up with 7 tables. God said 8 tables. So when you read this, imagine you're reading this at home and so on. What does it tell you? What does it tell you? If you have been, remember this is the 3rd temple. This is the future. Jesus came, Jesus died, Jesus resurrected, Jesus went away, and then he came back, rapture, he took the church out, and then there was tribulation, 7 years. At the end of 7 years tribulation, he came back, and then there will be a millennium. The millennium, and during this millennium, the devil is locked down, and then you have got this, the church is up there, new heaven. But then the Jews and those other nations that survived the tribulation, they acknowledge Jesus as their Lord. They will be on the earth. There will be a temple there, and Jesus and Jesus will be ruling and reigning with him for 1,000 years. You know that, right? Yeah. So why this sacrifice? Huh? Why this sacrifice? Now, in the Old Testament, in the tabernacle. So that's why if Bible teachers just tell you, these are just measurements, just skip, and then go on to chapter whatever, you are missing a very important thing. In the Old Testament, when they constructed the tabernacle, they also had all this, but they were in a very portable tentage, so they can move, right? But the essence of the inner court, the outer court, where you have the bronze altar, the wash basin, and then you go into the inner court, candlestick. All this were actually the same in Solomon's temple, but now Solomon's temple is fixed at Mount Moriah. It is not portable, not moving around. When God instituted this worship, instructed Moses to tell the people, and they built it, were they looking forward to the Messiah, or they were looking back? They were looking forward. But Jesus had not come. So all these sacrifices that every time they come, I'm talking about Solomon's temple and during the wilderness, when they bring 3 times a year, the men got to come to Jerusalem to worship, bring sacrifices, and the sacrifice got to be burned, and then they wash themselves before they go in, the priests, and then they do all the holy work ministry in there. And only once a year, the high priest can go into the most holy place to seek God's forgiveness for the sins of Israel. Right? Well, but it all started on the outside when the lamb, or when the lamb is sacrificed and then goes all the way in. All this the Jews may not understand, but actually all this is in future there will be one perfect lamb who will be sacrificed and he'll be totally offered. He died. Like you burn anything on that bronze altar, that animal, the bull, the cow, whatever, all will die. So Jesus was offered and he died on the cross. You follow me? So all this that the Jews were doing, but maybe a bit ignorant, not fully understanding, but all this were pointing to Jesus, that he will come and he will be sacrificed for the people, and then our sins will be forgiven, as it were, for them in the most holy place. But now, during the millennium, Jesus already resurrected. He already come after the tribulation. He already locked down the man of sin. Devil is locked up. So during the millennium, Jesus is alive. You are no longer looking forward to him. But then why are they still doing all these sacrifices? Because during this period, sin already all forgiven. All forgiven. Right? Because if you were not, you would have died at the end of the tribulation. You'll be at the end of the tribulation. You'll be condemned. But you are in the millennium. So why the sacrifice? Question. Why are we celebrating the Holy Communion? 1 Corinthians chapter 11 verse 26. You know 1 Corinthians 11 verse 26? As often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you remember the Lord's coming, the Lord's death, till he comes. So we do this as a form of remembrance. Jesus told the disciples, as often as you eat, as often as you drink, you remember. Right? So this is instituted and will be implemented during the millennium, when the third temple is built and the Jews will be slaughtering animals and still offering for trespass, for sin, and the burnt offering, to remember what Christ has done for them. You follow me? To remember, just like us. For us, already forgiven one. He already died. I accept Christ as my Lord and Savior. I'm saved. But why are we doing this every month? To remember, first of all, to remember the awfulness of our sins. You follow me? How awful our sin. And the sin is so awful. Not that it's a little awful or very awful, but it is awful. And for that, we are deserving of eternal punishment. The second thing is to remember the great sacrifice of Jesus. Yeah. And the third thing is to remember the holiness of God. In God's presence, in God's eyes, sight, no sin will he behold. You follow me? So, lest we forget, that's why we are still celebrating the Holy Communion. And for these Jews, and we have studied them since they were in the wilderness, you know how hard-hearted they are. Yeah, one moment, God save us, save us. So God saved them. God sent judges, delivered them. Then they went back to good times. Like Singapore, celebrate 53 years, right? And the moment we forget our blessings and God's grace, then we go and turn worldly, God will allow and inflict punishment on us. And then later he will send a deliverer. And that's been a cycle in the history of Israel, right? So, if there is anyone that needs to be constantly reminded, it better be the Jews. Because otherwise, you know what? They will do U-turn. So even in the millennium, this is instituted so they remember three things. Number one, sin is awful. Number two, Christ's sacrifice is great. Number three, God is holy. These are the three things. You write them somewhere, but I didn't put it there. But that's why I studied all this. Then one scholar said they are doing this is because the Israelites, they have a tendency to forget. We also doing this because we can forget, so we celebrate every month. So this chapter is not to be skipped. If you ask me any other part which is more important, none. This, to me, this is the most important part of chapter 40. So let's move on to 42, so you can have your break. So 4 tables were on this side and 4 tables on that side by the side of the gateway, 8 tables on which they slaughtered the sacrifices. There were 4 tables of hewn stone for the burnt offering, 1 cubit and a half long, and 1 cubit and a half long, 1 cubit high, a half cubit wide, and 1 cubit high. So God already gave you all these measurements. So go make the table. Go make the tables, the 8 tables. So you just go and follow homework like you follow. For burnt offering, 1 cubit and a half, 1 cubit and a half wide, and 1 cubit high. And on this, they laid the instruments with which they slaughtered the burnt offering and the sacrifice. Inside were hooks, a handbreadth wide, fastened all around, and the flesh of the sacrifices was on the tables. So very orderly, very organized. The tools were there to slaughter the animals, and the animals were there, not thrown on the floor. You know, like I've been to a wet market, hardly, but I've seen that they cut the fish here, they zoom, it goes to the other end, and then I pick it up and then chop from there. It's on the table. No, not wet market. This army camp. Army camp, the soldiers are, they all production line. They cut here, they think they throw on the floor, they sweep in there and pick up and then we eat. Okay. And we are still alive. Okay. Now, we move on to the chambers. Outside the inner gate were the chambers for the singers in the inner court. So, where are the chambers? Can we see chambers here? Okay, there's another diagram. This one. So, there are chambers here. What are these chambers for? So, outside the inner gate, outside the inner gate were the chambers for the singers and the inner in the inner court, one facing south at the side of the northern gate, and the other facing north at the side of the southern gate. Okay. So in this diagram, this one is the east. I know it's not sharp. This is the east, north, and south. So I believe they are referring to all these chambers for the singers to rest. Outside the inner gate were the chambers for the singers in the inner court, one facing south. Okay, this one is facing south. At the side of the northern gate, and the other facing north at the side of the southern gate. Then he said to me, verse 45, this chamber which faces south is for the priests who have charge of the temple. Which faces south is the one for the priests who have charge of the temple. Okay, so this one, this chamber here is facing south. This is south. East, north, south. This one is facing south. This chamber is for the priests who have charge of the temple. The chamber which faces north, the one who is facing north, is for the priests who have charge of the altar. These are the sons of Zadok. Remember I said the last time? Not Levites. I explain shortly here. These are the sons of Zadok from the sons of Levi who come near the Lord to minister to him. So, let's... Temple is the whole thing. Okay? Altar is the inside, most holy area, the holy place. You got it? So temple is general area in the place of worship. It could be here, it could also be here. It's just temple, the general area of the temple. These are the priests. And then there is another group which is meant for the altar inside here. And God made it so clear. Now, so we turn back the clock. Only those of the tribe of Levites shall be priests to serve the Lord. In this tribe of Levites, one of them is called Aaron. Aaron, Levite. Aaron is the brother of Moses, right? And God in the Pentateuch appointed Aaron and his descendants to be the ones serving him in the tabernacle and also in Solomon's temple. But by the time we come to Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, have the priests met God's expectation to the fullest? No. Both the priests and the prophets, the false prophets and all these lazy priests, they had not been feeding or teaching the people. God was disappointed with them. So there's another group called Zadok, which hardly appear. So within the tribe of Levi, Aaron is one line, right? But tribe of Levi is not just Aaron, there are others. Another one called Zadok. And then he also has his descendant. If you go and read Samuel and so on, and Kings, there is Zadok and his descendants who have been very faithful serving King David and King Solomon. They've been very faithful. David had a rough time because he had to run away from Saul. He had to, fight for his survival and so on. And who stood with him? Zadok, faithfulness. And then there was Solomon. Solomon is actually a weakling. Yeah, he just like a nice boy, sit at home, everything provided for him, just write books in here. Okay? Enjoy all the animals, enjoy all the women, enjoy the good things of life. Then in the end he said it's meaningless. But he also had very faithful. People could have just walked out on him, but Zadok and the priests, they were very faithful towards him. Let me give you the reference. This is in, you can read this in 1 Kings chapter 2 verse 35. 1 Kings chapter 2 verse 35. When I find other references, I'll tell you. But 1 Kings 2:35, we will find Zadok. So they are from the sons of Levi. They are from the tribe of Levi. Aaron is one line, Zadok is another line. And because they had been faithful with a little, God will now give them much. So they were faithful to David and Solomon. And now God will give them the duty of attending to his altar, not Aaron's line. Aaron's line will still continue to attend to the temple in general, but the altar, he reserved it for Zadok. So what is the lesson here? Faithfulness. Well done, good and faithful servant. That is the measurement. That's all. Nothing else. It's not how many souls you have won for Christ. It is not how many people you raised from the dead and how many people got healed and how many sermons you preach and so on. It's your faithfulness. Whatever the Lord has tasked you to do, have you been faithful? And for their faithfulness, they were rewarded with this. And the chamber which faces the north is for the priests who have charge of the altar. And he mentioned, God mentioned, these are the sons of Zadok from the sons of Levi. But if there is no change, he need not have said, because by our knowledge and history, our memory, we think it's Levites, right? Just Levi, Aaron's line, but it's not. So God mentioned, these are the sons of Zadok from the sons of Levi who come near the Lord to minister to him. Come nearly, near the Lord. And he measured, verse 47, and he measured the court 100 cubits long and 100 cubits wide. 4 square. The altar was in front of the temple. Okay. The altar was in front of the temple, and this altar is for sacrifice. Then he brought me to the vestibule of the temple and measured the door posts of the vestibule, 5 cubits on this side and 5 cubits on that side. The width of the gateway was 3 cubits on this side and 2 cubits on that side. The length of the vestibule was 20 cubits and the width 11 cubits, and by the steps which led up to it there were pillars by the doorpost, one on this side and another on that side. Sounds so difficult. Okay? But what he is describing is here. This is the altar. Okay? This is the entrance. And from 5 cubits, it becomes narrower to 3 cubits. We just read, right? As you approach the holy place, this is going to be narrower. The altar, the temple, and I show you there are 2 pillars. You see? But I think this one looks more like Solomon's temple. Let me see if there's another one. Okay, maybe later. Okay, but suffice to know, this is the altar, the temple, and then the 2 pillars there, if you can see. So very much, that part is very much similar to the Solomon's temple, when they had that pillar, the 2 pillars in front of the inner court. So that is chapter 14.